Sir, you can start the class. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah. Now I am unmuted myself. Yeah. Right. A very good evening to all participants. We have been discussing on the life and contributions of Vidyaranya Mahaswamiji. Now, this is the third and the concluding session we are having today. So, taking from where we left, first, our pranams to the great Guru. Om Tat Sate. Avidyaranya Kantare, Pramatam Praninam Sada, Vidya Margovadeshtaram, Vidyaranya Gurum Shraye. So we are all on the path of Avidya, and Vidyaranya has to take us onto the path of Vidya. So saluting that great sage, great Mahamahima, we'll continue our discussions. So one of the most important works of Vidyaranya is Parashara Madhaviya and also the Vyavahara Madhaviya. See, Parashara Madhaviya basically is on Parashara Smriti. Kalau Parashara Smritihi is the sentence what I was telling even yesterday also. So for Kali Yuga, it is Parashara Smriti which is the valid code of conduct, is what is said. So this Parashara Smriti normally deals only more with the Achara and the Prayaschitta portion, and Vyavahara is very much less in the Smriti portion. But Vidyaranya Swami, that is as Madhavacharya, he took a lot of pains to see that he gives a very elaborate importance for the Vyavahara portion. Vyavahara, he defines Vyavahara as what is actually the portion where, see, he says, Etalloka pradhanoyaha paralokopa sarjanaha sadharmo vyavaharasyat acharastu viparyaye. He says that which is more relevant, that which is very important to be done for getting the benefits here in this world is what is Vyavahara, and where you do something for which you are not expecting any worldly returns, but it is only Paraloka Drishti. That is, the hereafter. It is Atmaunnati and Paraloka Drishti, that is Achara. So here he writes in his Vyavahara Madhaviya, almost it is entirely an independent work, though it is called as some sort of an annexi or annexure to the Parashara Madhaviya. Vyavahara Madhaviya deals with so many things which are relevant for our daily life and our mundane activities. In fact, Vyavahara Madhaviya, Madhavacharya very clearly deals with even Astri Bhaga, that is, how to distribute, the distribution of properties, who are all the eligible people and all that, and civil disputes. He gives a very clear indication about how to handle the civil disputes. He also says how about the purchase and sale agreements, how to be dealt with in that. All these things are given in Vyavahara Madhaviya. He says, Kriya Bedhan Manushyanam Shatashakyo Nigadyate. So that the meaning is, among people, any transaction that takes place can lead to a vivada, can lead to a dispute. And those disputes are hundreds in nature, and there should be a there should be a framework of law which should take care of all these transactions and which should help solving of these disputes which arise in the day-to-day transactions. This is how he defines Vyavahara and goes on with his Vyavahara Madhaviya, a great work. There, he covers many aspects of Vyavahara, like Daya Bhaga, that is how the property must be distributed, who are all the eligible people, Vibhaga Kala, that is when such distribution of property should take place, and he says Vibhaga Prakara, how many types of, by way of a gift deed or a will or whatever we call in today's parlance. So how that distribution of property could be done by the person who owns it. Then Jeshtamsha Vichara, whether there should be any preference for the elder son, and if what are the responsibilities he to take for taking those responsibilities, some additional properties to be given to him, and all these things, he very clearly discusses in Vyavahara Madhaviya. He also says Matradhana or Stridhana. What is the status of Stridhana? Whatever the lady gets from her own parents, whether who is eligible to distribute it, how she can herself distribute it. All these things, he takes a very minute view of all these complicated affairs, and he gives a very clear picture as to how these. Then Bhinna Jatiya Putra Vibhaga. Supposing one fellow has married some ladies of different castes, then how his property is to be distributed. See, whatever was relevant for that day's society, whatever were the problems which are expected to come up, he deals with in full detail, and he gives certain guidelines as to how these complicated affairs could be handled with a very impartial way. And he also deals with aputradaya. Supposing somebody dies, he dies intestate. He doesn't have anybody who can claim the property. Then where that property should go? It should go to the king, like that, And before that, the king has to inquire whether there is anyway, one of his wives, if she is pregnant, then it goes to that lady and also to the next progeny. All these things, he goes on explaining. So such a nice aspect of such a clear guidance for the day-to-day affairs is provided by Madhava. They were all, because that's what's called as Vyavahara Madhaviya. He wrote it when he was Madhavacharya. That is before his becoming a sannyasin and becoming Vidyaranya. He wrote that. Then he also says, whenever such disputes arise, it should be referred to a council or a team of, it should be adjudicated by something like an arbitration council. So he need not be a Nyayadhisha, it should be arbitration. And see how beautifully Madhavacharya says in his Vyavahara Madhaviya. He says the Vadis and Prativadis, that is the one who pleads and the defendant and the plaintiff. The defendant and the plaintiff, both people, they should be able to produce the witnesses. The sakshis must be given, and how it should be recorded. And the king should nominate a committee which will get to the details of this dispute, and they will decide. And the greatest hats off to the genius of Madhavacharya, that is Madhava Vidyaranya, when he clearly says that such a committee should have 7, 5, or 3 members. That means to say, there should not be a tie-up while giving a decision. It should be odd number of members. He says 7, 5, or 3 members must be there in the committee. And that committee will get into the details, and they will hear all the disputes, and they will give a decision with odd number of members. Then he also says, it's a beautiful thing what Madhavacharya says in his Vyavahara Madhaviya. He says, Aranyastu swakaih kuryuhu, sarthaka sarthakaistatha, sainikai sainikaireva, grame ubhayavasibhihi. He says, that means to say, then the dispute is between the tribals. The committee should have major number of committee members must be from that tribe, because they know what is the normal behavior of the tribe, what are the norms that are being observed in that tribe. So they should know. It is not that one fellow will, just like many times what happens, some Muslim or a Christian judge will be there before whom our temples will go and give some dispute. So it should not be that sort. He says Aranyis to Aranyi, where it is a dispute between the tribals. The persons from that tribe must be co-opted into the committee, and they should be there to tell the committee as to what are the norms of that tribe and whether it is within that accepted norm or not. Then similarly, when it is the question of a villager, dispute in between the two villagers of the same village, so that particular in that village, whatever is the norm must be able to be followed by the persons who is represented in the team. And he also says, if it is a dispute between people belonging to the Sainya, that is the defense personnel. So there is a dispute between 2 defense personnel or between defense personnel. So whoever is the affected parties, their representatives who are well versed with their traditions and norms must be included in the committee, which should be having odd number of persons, for making a decision. Such a beautiful thing, which, even today, many of these things which you are not able to implement, Madhavacharya so clearly defines and says it should be like this. So these are all the contents in Vyavahara Madhaviya. And Parashara Madhaviya and Vyavahara Madhaviya, they are almost the same, almost the same book, where Vyavahara Madhaviya is more about the Vyavahara, whereas Parashara Madhaviya about more of the religious aspects and prayaschitta and other things. And one more very nice thing what he says in Parashara Madhaviya is, it is the responsibility of the king to avoid as far as possible. See, as I told you yesterday, he was a traditionalist who declared that Raja Pratyaksha Devata. So Raja, you cannot contest his supremacy. He is supreme. He is the representative of God. But at the same time, he gives sober restrictions to the king as to how he should behave himself. One of the things what he says very clearly in Parashara Madhaviya is, he at one point of time, he makes a comment. He is bound by dharma, which is proved by the fact that Aho Mahadidam Dharmasya Samarthyam. What a great power dharma has with it, because it makes a king who comes in a golden palanquin, who sits in a golden chair, travels on an elephant in a golden palanquin, comes in a golden palanquin, and goes down to a Brahmin who is living in a hermitage, who is living in a hut, who does not have even, he will wear a bark cloth. Not even, he doesn't wear some silk cloth and other things. For such a Brahmin, this man comes and prostrates before him. This is the power of dharma. Only that power he is exercising, so he should ensure that he protects that dharma properly. There's a restriction on the king, he says. And he also goes on to say that he should avoid war. And in case the war becomes inevitable, then what he has to do is, these are all things from what Madhavacharya has told in his works. He says, Jitva sampujayet devan brahmananschaiva dharmikan pradadyat pariharartham khyapayet abhayanicha. So, if it becomes inevitable, then the king shall go ahead with a war. And after he gets the kingdom, after he becomes victorious, after he wins the war, what he should do? Immediately after the war is concluded, Jitva Sampujayet Devan, he should show his respect to all the temples and other places of worship within that kingdom. He should honor them. He should restore them to the original status. He should give them, provide them with funds and other things to see that the activities of those religious places continue to be functional. Then Brahmanams Chaiva Dharmikan, anybody who is bound by dharma, they must all be honored by him. And he says, Pradadyat Pariharartham, those who have suffered some damages during the war, they must be compensated by the king. Who wins? Not the fellow who loses. After all, he has already lost the war. He has no wherewithal to support these people. So the king who wins the war must provide for compensation to the people. When the war is taking place, his house is damaged, his crops are lost, his, he wants a big garden or something, a grove or something, mango grove is there, or a coconut grove that gets destroyed during the war, something happens. So he says, Pradadyat Pariharartham. He must give parihara, he must give the compensation for the losses which a common man incurs when a war takes place. What a beautiful concept Madhavacharya preaches to the king, and he makes it mandatory. It is not optional. He says he shall do it. And he says, Khyapayet abhayanicha. Then he should give an assurance to the common men of that city. Don't worry, I am not going to harm you. My war was against only the king, and I will take care of your interests. He should give Khyapayet abhayani. He should give abhaya. He should give some protection to those people, and it doesn't stop there. He says, Sthapayet tatra tadvamshyam. It is a responsibility of the king who wins the war to see who is the best fellow among the family of the defeated king, and he should be made the next king. And he will be a subordinate to this fellow. That's all. The person who has won the war, he will be the boss, and the person who is nominated by him, he will be subordinate to him. But that subordinate shall be selected from the family of the defeated king, Tadvamshyam, from his Vamsha, from his dynasty, he should take, and Kuryacha Samanakriyam, and he should be installed as the next king. See, this particular thing, perhaps, Vidyaranya, he quotes, he takes that this is the right way because Vedavyasa and Valmiki have approved this method. See, when Rama killed Vali, then he did not acquire it and make Kishkinda also as part of Ayodhya kingdom. He gave it to Sugriva, the same Vamshasta. Similarly, when he conquered Lanka, he gave it to Vibhishana. Similarly, if you come to Mahabharata, when Krishna took Bhima and others, and when Jarasandha was killed, Jarasanda's son, Sahadeva, was made the next king. So that means to say, you are not there to disturb the social fabric. The question is, yes, there are some difference of opinion. The two kings fought. Doesn't mean that the common man should suffer. This particular guide message, Vidyaranya has been able to very, very effectively indicate and tell the people of those days, including the kings. So that was one of his great contributions. See, that is how even, in fact, if you really look at it, even Sayanacharya followed the same thing. Yesterday I explained to you that Tundiramandalam king, Champaraya, he was punished, he was defeated by Sayanacharya in war, but he was given back the kingdom. He was arrested, brought to Udayagiri and released and said, okay, you take care of your kingdom, we are not interested, but be subordinate to us. Whatever, see, this boy, Immadi Sangama is the boss. Whatever he says, you should be obedient to him. Go ahead, like that he said. So this was the great contribution of these brothers, Sayana and Madhava. So that means to say, the difference between the royalties should not affect a common man or a man on the street. He should be well protected and his life should not be subjected to these vagaries. That was their main intention. And at the same time, the Vyavahara Madhaviya also gives so many other indications where, in fact, one of the things what it is said is, in those days also, from times immemorial, we have been an agricultural economy and agriculture had to be supported and lot of support was given to the agricultural activities. So if you really look at that, the way it was all handled, the irrigation was a very important aspect, and Madhavacharya gave a lot of prominence to agriculture as well as the irrigation system. In fact, if you really go through that, there is one particular word what he uses, Ashuvrihi. Ashuvrihi is, that is, within 3 months. So there was some system. Of course, it doesn't say that Vidyaranya devised it or something, but he encouraged these systems is what has been written. So he said, this is this Ashuvrihi is a crop which can be cultivated within 3 to 4 months. You can get the harvest. So the Vijayanagara Empire encouraged people to get into such aspects of Ashuvrihi, that is a commercial crop sort of a thing where it can be more than one crop in 1 year. So they were all encouraged. And one great thing that came up was, this was one great contribution by Madhavacharya as a chief minister. He said, public should also participate in these activities, and whoever is a rich man, is a big man, has got a very good name and has got a lot of money, etc. He should also be able to participate in the social welfare activity of building the canals or building the formulation of lakes and other water sources, etc. So that is so, in fact, in many of our places, especially in those who know Kannada will be able to appreciate it better. There are some, in fact, even there are some shasanas, that is in some inscriptions also it is there. There are some, this one called as Sulekere. Sulekere means a lake which was funded and which was formulated by a prostitute. So she also, that means to say, said whoever has done it, we will give recognition to them. The king will recognize them. The king will give appreciation to them. So like this, that means to say how he integrated many, many aspects of the social life, how he took care of making people to be very participative in the entire process of governance is a great thought, which is the greatest contribution. I mean, that too 700 years back. We all feel that they were all monarchs and they just did whatever they wished. No. A Mahamantri like Madhavacharya, a Guru like Vidyaranya could focus their attention as to how it should be conducted. Then, in fact, Bukkaraya, in fact, this has been recorded even in the British history and British records, that Bukkaraya constructed a 15-mile long canal for the Tungabhadra river. So, even the Britishers said in those days, and it was all done by using in those days, they used to call it as Vajragare. That Vajragare, and that is a special type of mortar which they used to prepare with by using even the glass pieces and other things. So that with a stone, only stone-walled canal was built for 15-mile long canal was there, built by Bukkaraya. After all, Bukkaraya built means there has to be some force. So it was the chief minister who drove all these efforts to take a proper shape. So even Britishers have also recorded their appreciation about it. So and one more very, very important aspect that we have to appreciate with our Madhavacharya and Madhava Vidyaranya is, he said, Brahmanasya pujyate, you respect Brahmins and all that. He said, he also said, aho dharmasya samarthyam, etc. The same gentleman, the same Madhavacharya says in his Vyavahara Madhaviya, he says a beautiful sentence. He says, avrata hinadhiyana yatra bhaikshachara dvijaha tam gramam dandayed raja chora bhakta pradohiyaha, he says. So he says, look here, you must respect Brahmins. I have told the kings, but the king has a responsibility to ensure that only the deserving people are respected. Not, see, that is the Janma Brahmana. Just because he is born in the Brahmin community, not that you just give him all preferences and all respect. No, if he deserves, then only give it. Otherwise, in fact, he says, avrataha, anadhiyanaha, such of the Brahmins who are avrataha, they are not following any vrata, they have not made Vedadhyanam, they have not done Vedadhyanam, they are not mastered the Vedas, they have not doing any yagas and any of these Brahminical acts they are not doing, but just showing themselves, put some vibhuti or gandham or something and dress like a very great scholar and go around begging bhaikshachara dvijaha, just because he go on bhaushi bhiktandehi, go say Allah. And if such people are protected by the king, he is doing injustice to society. It shall be his responsibility, the king, to see that the village which supports such dongi Brahmins, such Brahmins who are not doing any vratas, who are not doing any adhyanam, if they simply take shelter under their birth certificate and are getting money by just a display of their power of speech only, they should be punished. And if it is not done, chora bhakta pradohisaha, so then he is shielding the thieves. So it is a negative marking to the king. A king shall take immediate action to see that the village which is supporting such dongi fellows, they are to be blamed, and that grama, that entire village, should pay a penalty to the king. To that extent, he is logical and so clear about the dharmic ways. He is so clear. He even earlier, later also he says, see, Janma Kshatra and Janma Brahma is not the important thing. That is only the Guna Kshatra and Guna Brahma and Guna Kshatra. You must be not by birth, but by profession. You should become that. All that he goes on telling. So that was his great contribution. I think yesterday itself we have seen about the taxation, where he says if a king collects more than 16% of the tax, then the king is useless. He is not doing justice to the society. Then one more very important thing, which I think none of us would have even thought in our dreams, that great contribution by Madhavacharya in his Vyavahara Madhaviya and also in this one, Parashara Smriti's interpretation. He says widow remarriage is permitted. a license given, a clearance given by the great Acharya. He says, this is from the Smriti, that is the Parashara Smriti, where he says, Nashte, Mrute, Pravrajite, Klive cha patitau patau, Panchatvapatsu narinam, Patiranyo vidhiyate. This is the main stanza from Parashara Smriti, where it says, Nashte. Supposing, some fellow goes on some tour, goes for a voyage or something, and he is not traceable. Nashte, he is lost. Brute, or he is dead. Then Pravrajite, or the society has boycotted him and thrown him out of the city. He cannot enter into that kingdom. In those days, it was kingdom, so he has been thrown, he is exiled. He cannot re-enter. Klibe, or he is a eunuch. He is not a proper person. Then patitau patau, or he has committed panchamaha patakas and nobody wants to see his face. In all such cases, patitau patau, panchat swapatsu, under these 5 circumstances, narinam patiranyo vidhiyate. So, under these 5 circumstances, a lady can accept another man as her husband. Such a generous statement made by Parashara was fully supported by Vidyaranya in his Madhaviya, in Parashara Madhaviya also, and even in the Vyavahara Madhaviya, he says, yes, after all, the lady has her own dignity of life and it shall be protected. So it is permitted. There is no embargo for that. Such a broad thinking he had, who was the 12th pontiff of the Shankara school from the Dakshinamnaya Pitha. That was his generosity and that was his humane approach for all the problems. So he was also there with that this one. And one more thing, the next important thing is he also gave in his Vyavahara Madhaviya rights, women's rights for property. I think perhaps till then the women's rights were very, very limited for property, and it was in Vyavahara Madhaviya that Madhavacharya, who later became Vidyaranya, he gave a lot of importance to this in his Dayabhaga and other things. He said, yes, a woman is also entitled to get the property from either husband or the parents or whatever it is. So he says that she can get this. He has got a right to get the property. So this right to property was very well established by Madhaviya, and in fact, if we really, as I told you in the first day, Madhavacharya belonged to the Bodhayana school. The Bodhayana school does not take into account the woman's right, whereas that is the Krishna Yajurveda Bhaga, and he belonged to the Krishna Yajurveda. The other branch, that is Yajnavalkya, that is the Shukla Yajurveda. The Yajnavalkya school, under Yajnavalkya school, there was one great man, that is our Vijnaneshwara. Today, whatever we read of Hindu law, Vijnaneshwara's Dayabhaga theory and other things. So that Vijnaneshwara, his expositions were all based on the Yajnavalkya's propositions, and there Vijnaneshwara gives that Dayabhaga, that's a right to the women's property, and in Vyavahara Madhaviya, Madhavacharya upheld that, though it was from other Shaka, it is not his Swashaka. His Swashaka was Bodhayana Shaka, whereas this particular concept was in Yajnavalkya's Shaka. But still, that means to say how broad-minded he was. He was for the general good of the society. He never thought, no, see, my guru has not told this, so it should not be allowed. He never took that stand. He said, whatever is the justice to be delivered, we shall do it. Like the Rigveda's Vakya, what it says, Ado Badra Kato Indu Vishwataha, let noble thoughts come from all sides. So that was the great thought which Vidyaranya entertained. And in his Vyavahara Madhaviya, he very clearly said, I may not belong to Yajnavalkya school. And Vijnaneshwara belongs to Yajnavalkya school. But I uphold the views of Vijnaneshwara so far as the property rights of women is concerned. And he gave an endorsement and he said, it shall be, the women also should be entitled to get, they must be able to get the property rights. All that he very clearly said. In fact, on that, Dr. Buhler, a great Dr. Buhler, who was a British scholar, he says, it's worthwhile noting this, Vyavahara-madhaviya is a treatise on civic and criminal law. Though Vidyaranya belonged to Bodhayana school, he relies for law of inheritance not on Bodhayana Sukta but on Vijnaneshwara's exposition of Yajnavalkya. What a great personality Vidyaranya was. This is how Dr. Buller makes a comment. So, to that extent, she was so open and so open-minded and so clear about how justice should be delivered. So, that was the great contribution that he gave on the social front. And that is why it is said by scholars that whatever Vidyaranya did is something like what Vedavyasa did. Vedavyasa did the reclassification of the entire Vedic literature, with the entire Vedas, and then he reclassified them and made them fall into place in certain broad classifications and implementations. Similarly, he did for Shrutis and for Smritis, like Manusmriti or Parashara Smriti, etc. It was Vidyaranya who made a consolidation and gave it to the society in a very precise manner. Then, the other portion, what you should be very, very proud of, is about his contribution to music and dance. In fact, many people may not know that Vidyaranya was an exponent in music as well. He was a great musicologist and a musicologist. I do not know whether he was a musician or not. We don't have any record on that, but he was really a great musicologist. That much is definitely true. In fact, he had authored a book which was called as Sangeeta Sara. That Sangeeta Sara, I think today it is not available in its complete, in its completeness. It is not available. It is available here and there, and also it is more alive in the works of other great musicologists, like Govinda Dikshita. Govinda Dikshita, that is the father of Venkatamukhi, who started the 72 Melakarta ragas. So that 72 ragas, that 72 Melakarta structure, whatever, that his father Govinda Dikshita, that Govinda Dikshita has highest appreciation for Vidyaranya Sangeeta Sara. In his masterly work called as Sangeeta Sudha, he quotes so often from Vidyaranya's works of Sangeeta Sara. He says, Vidyaranya takes this view, so this is the correct view. Vidyaranya says, so this is the correct view. Like that, in his Sangeeta Sudha, he often quotes Sangeeta Sara of Vidyaranya, which unfortunately is not available to us in its full-fledged form. And in fact, Mr. Dr. Ra Satyanarayana, I think our Mysore-based great Vidwan, he is an international musicologist and a research scholar, that is Mahamahopadhyaya. Ra Satyanarayana has written a book, I think it is still to be published, called as Karnataka Sangeeta Vahini. And in that particular great work of Karnataka Sangeeta Vahini, he allots a slot of 85 pages for the contributions of Vidyaranya to music. Please imagine, an international musicologist of today recognizes Vidyaranya's contributions and says about 85 pages he reserves for explaining how Vidyaranya's contributions have enriched the music field. What a great person he must be. You take state administration, you take Vyavahara, you take Sangeeta, wherever you go, this man has got he has made a mark. Whether it is Madhaviya Dhatu Vritti, where it is a grammar, everywhere he is there. What a great personality. I don't know how exactly to salute this great personality. And he says, and then, and on music, I think all of us know, we have heard about Dr. Padma Subramaniam, the greatest danceway of our times. And she, in her book, Natya Shastra and the National Unity, in that book, she writes so much about the contributions that Vidyaranya made to the field of dance. There she says, when the temples of Madurai, Srirangam, Kanchi, and all these things were destroyed and were under the Muslim rule and Muslim control. All the fine arts had virtually died. They never wanted to encourage all this. But once these temples were rebuilt and they were reacquired to the Vijayanagar kingdom, the entire system of Devadasi system, where the Devadasi, see, nowadays it is unfortunate that in the recent maybe a century or slightly more than that, Devadasis have been mistaken as something of low character and all this sort of unwanted things have been given. But Devadasi was not that. Devadasi system was, as a system, it was only to propagate the dance. And they never wanted to dance for others. They wanted to dance only in front of the god. So that's how the Devadasi system started. It has been misused. Well, we are human beings. We are capable of misusing anything. So that is our track record. And we have misuse of that system also. But Vidyaranya was not so. He gave life to the Devadasi system and he brought back the encouragement to the dancers in the Bhagavat Seva. So they will dance only before the god. And they were given vrittis. They were given some land, some money and other things from the temple funds to see that they are able to survive. And they will come and perform only before the god. When then they are performing before the god, other people are at liberty to watch them, watch the dance. But they will not perform dance based on the alms or the money they get from the public. This was the main concept. So she says the entire Devadasi system was refined and redefined, and it was supported by Vidyaranya, at the instance of Vidyaranya, by Hakka and Bukka in the Vijayanagar Empire. So, like this, you take any field, he has left an indelible mark in all those fields. That was the main greatness. And then, coming to his concept about Jyotish Shastra and also on Shilpa Shastra. Even today, whenever we visit Sringeri, we all go and prostrate before Vidyashankara. You have seen, just by the adjacent to the Sharadamba's temple, there is one big temple on something like a dais is there. On that dais, you have that Vidyashankara temple. It is called as Vidyashankara temple. That Vidyashankara temple is nothing but the place where Vidyatirtha Swamiji, that is Vidyatirtha and Bharati Tirtha, as I told yesterday also, they were the two great gurus. Even in every Vidyatirtha Maheshwaram, Vidyatirtho Maheshwara, like that, all they are telling. So they held him high esteem, and that Vidyatirtha, he entered what is called as a Lumbika Yoga. That is, he wanted to have the Sadeha Mukti and all that. He was doing penance. It was disturbed. So many stories. We don't have time for that story. But he was doing his tapas there and finally attained Siddhi there itself. That is the place where Vidyashankara temple has been built. I think most of you must be aware that there are some 12 pillars within the precincts of that Vidyashankara temple. That temple was constructed by Vidyaranya because Vidyaranya Swamiji had lot of Madhava Vidyaranya. She had lot of respect for his Paramaguru. That is, Vidyatirtha, Shishya was Bharati Tirtha. Bharati Tirtha gave sannyasa to Vidyaranya. So he was Paramaguru and she was so much devoted to him. And that temple, he made that it is a standing example for, it's a not only for the sculpture, but also for the a great quality, a great aspect that was built into the temple construction was the 12 pillars have been marked as the Rashikamba or the zodiacal sign, Mesham, Vrishabham, Mithunam, Katakam, etc. There, the picture has been inscribed on that particular pillar, and on the first day of that particular month, Meshamasam, Vrishabhamasam, etc., that is on the day, sun enters that particular zodiacal sign. On that day, on that Sankramana day, the sun's rays fall on that particular pillar inside the temple. That's the greatness of that structure. All done under the masterly supervision of Madhava and Vidyaranya. Maybe it was during Madhava or after Madhava became Vidyaranya, whatever it is. But all the more, it was the contribution of Vidyaranya, that temple. 12 every year, even till today, if you go, you will be able to see. On the first day of the Sankramanam, the sun's rays fall on that particular pillar. Such a great thing our great Guru Vidyaranya was able to do and get it done. So that was his entry into Jyotish Shastra, movement of planets, as well as the Sthapatya Veda or the Shilpa Shastra. To that extent, he was able to provide that sort of a support. And then one more great thing he did was, yesterday I discussed this, he gave that Sri Vidyashankara as a common seal for the Sringeri Mutt. Even today, whatever communication comes as Sri Vidyashankara, because he held Vidyatirtha so great in his mind, and he was Paramaguru of Vidyaranya. So he made that as the royal, as the authorized seal of the Mata, and all the documentation, all the properties, like even the silverware and other things, they all carry this emblem of Sri Vidyashankara. That is shows that it belongs to Sringeri Mutt. To that extent, he was so disciplined and so much sold out to Vidyashankara, who was his Vidyatirtha. Then one more great contribution of Vidyaranya, all of us, even today, we are able to witness and see. That is the Murti, the Puja Murti, Archa Murti in Sringeri. The Shardamba Vigraham, what we see in Sringeri, it is not made out of a stone or something. It is a Panchaloham. It is made of Panchaloha Vigraha. That is why there will be no Abhishekam on a day-to-day basis. Only once in a year, on Mahalaya Amavasya, it is called as Sharadamba Mahabhishekaha. On that day, Mahabhishekam is done to Sharadamba. On every Mahalaya Amavasya, only on one day, she will have that Abhishekam. On other days, it is only Upacharika Snanam. Then that Panchaloha Vigraham with maximum content of gold, the Panchaloha Vigraham was God done by Vidyaranya, and he placed it. Earlier to that, for 11 generations, the sannyasins of Shankaramatam, they used to perform puja to a sandalwood idol of Sharadambal. That for the sandalwood idol has been moved. Even today it is available. Vidyaranya said, a wooden idol cannot survive for too long a period. Somewhere some problem will come. Before that, we should replace it by a metal vigraha, so that she should be able to bless for generations and generations, for thousands of years, she should be blessing us. A wooden idol cannot do this. Like that, he took that stand, he removed the sandalwood idol and placed this idol of Panchaloham with maximum suvarnam, maximum gold content. And even today, we are able to see the moment you go, that means say that person's great tapascharya must have given. See, it is said that, always, we say, Pratimayanti Sannidhyam Archakasya Tapobalat. See, if the Archaka is a tapasvi, Pratima becomes God. Otherwise, it is just a doll. It will not be God. If God will come there only if the Archaka is sincere. If he, Pratimayanti Sannidhyam Archakasya Tapobalat. So, that Archakasya Tapobala, you are able to see even today, after 700 years, you get that vibration when you stand before Sharadambal. That was the greatest thing which all of us are able to see, and we have seen it. So that was Vidyaranya. Then his, we have already told about the astronomical wonder, that Vidyashankara temple also. And then there was also then we have also one more, this one I should say. Earlier, up to Vidyaranya's time, the Swamijis of Sringeri Mutt, they were all what we call in Kannada as Bidisanyasigal. That is, they were only in a monastic way. They were only aloof from the public life. They were doing their tapascharya and other things like that. They were there. In fact, Vidyatirtha was also like that. Even Bharati Tirtha was like that. Bharati Tirtha became the link, and from Vidyaranya's time, the involvement into the public life became much clear and more well defined. So till such time, they themselves were yatis and sannyasins, and they went down. But once Vidyaranya took the reins, even before he took the reins, that is when he was even Madhava Mantri, as a Madhavacharya, when he was the chief minister of Harihara and Bukka, and later on even Bukka's son, he served under 3 kings. Harihararaya, Bukkaraya, Harihararaya from 1945 to 54, 54 to 13, I'm sorry, you kindly excuse me, some 19 may come, and you should take it as 13. So 1345 to 1354 was the period of Harihara. 1354 to 1376 was Bukkaraya, and 1376 to 1377 was the period when he served as the chief minister for Bukkaraya's son, who was called as the Immadi Sangama. So all these people, Immadi Harihara, so all these people, he was, for 3 kings, he was the chief minister, and every king offered that we have to honor you, we must give you something. He said nothing doing. So one Agraharam was given, he named it as Hariharapura in recognition of the services, the Harihararaya to the Sringeri. Then he also said so many other things were given away, so he never wanted to take anything. But at the same time, he was the one who was able to get lots of land to Sringeri Mutt. So many vrittis were given. As I already told you, see, between, these are all shasanas, the Shila Shasana and the inscriptions and other things, where the date is given in Shalivahana Shaka, Shalivahana Samvat. In that, from 1267 to 1308, that is the period. That's the period about 40 years. That 40 years, if you convert it into Christian era, Krista Shaka, from Shalivahana Shaka, add 78, it becomes 1345 to 1386. In this 40 periods of 1345 to 1386, the land donations which are given by the Vijayanagar kings in installments, all put together, in those times, they were not being measured in terms of acres. They all used to measure in terms of revenue, land revenue. So they are called, in Kannada it was called as Beriju. Beriju means the land revenue that is generated from that land. So it is some percentage, something like 5% or 2% of the value of the yield or something was there. So in those days, it is recorded in these 40 years, 3,000 varahas was the Beriju. That means to say the land which was capable of earning to the king, 3,000 varahas in those days was gifted to Sringeri. This was the great contribution. Today, if Sringeri is able to give so much of social service and other things, because of Vidyaranya, who ensured that they got such a vast land. That's why, they are having land everywhere. All kings. Later on, even the Maratha kings, they also gave a lot of things. Even in Nasik and other places, Godavari Tiram and other places also, they got it. So, and to be very frank, this was distributed. See, this they were prepared to give it to Madhavacharya personally, because he had helped them. But Madhavacharya, no, I will not take it, you give it to Sringeri. And he was not the Yati at that point of time. It was Bharati Tirtha or Vidya Tirtha who was there. He became a Yati only in 1377. He took sannyasa. Till such time, it was all his gurus. He said, give it to my guru. I don't want anything. He never took anything. Had a great personality. Can we get any parallel, even in thought? Impossible. Such a great personality he was. And he says, and he distributed the lands to all the pandits who were associated with all his works. You see, as I told you, the greatest contribution, the magnum opus of these two brothers, Sayana Madhava, was Vedartha Prakasha, where the Vedartha Prakasha, all the 4 Vedas, including the Shadangas, the 6 ancillary, everything was commented upon. Till then, there was no complete work on all the 4 Vedas put together. Each shaka separately it was being done. But Sayana attempted, and it cannot be done by one person. So the greatness, in fact, even in the modern times, the chief executive only is appreciated, but it is done through delegation by so many people. It is not that one person does it, but the result is able to ensure. That is more important. The chief executive ensures the results. He is not doing all by himself. Like that Vidyaranya and Sayana, they ensured that the Vedartha Prakasha was brought about. For that, as I told you, when he was in North India, he got in touch with so many Vidwans, he brought all those Pandits, and he made that great effort and made it a great success. And the records say that he gave land, whatever he got, they are all made into Agraharas, and all those Agraharas were given to these Pandits. They were from Bengal, they were from Gujarat, they were from Punjab, they were from Kashmir. They were from Kashi, so many other places. All those, whoever was an exponent in Yajurveda, wherever he is, bring him. Wherever he is, bring him from Punjab, if he is a Rigveda specialist, Samveda, like that he did, made a great workforce or task force, created a task force. For the task force, he gave per head, it is said, about 5 varahas, Beriju. There is a land which can generate 5 varahas as the annual income to the king. That much of land was allotted to these Vidwans for their sustenance. Because if they sit for writing Vedabhashya, how the family will run? So for that purpose, he gave that land and made it perpetual for their family, and he put them, engaged them in the compilation and in the preparation of Vedartha Prakasha, for which the leaders were Sayana and Madhava. They only did. In fact, at one point of time, Bukkaraya says, see, our name, our dynasty, because we have started this Vajrayana kingdom, it should remain forever. Guruji, you should bless. Then Madhava is supposed to have said that, yes, if you want that it should remain, you get the commentaries prepared on Vedas. Vedartha Prakasha we will publish in your regime. We will do it. Your name will stand till the sun and moon are there. Achandrarka, it will stay. Then he says, Sayanaryo Mamanujaha. But I cannot do it because I am concentrating on so many other things. I am hard hit of time. I don't have that sort of a time frame to do this job. So I will deploy for this work my younger brother Sayana. Sayanaryo Mamanujaha Sarvam Yatyesham. He is capable to do it and will do it. And that Sayana, in his Vedartha Prakasha, Yuktukto Madhavaryena, Veera Bukka Mahipati, Veeraha, he said, Anvashat Sayanacharyam Vedarthasya Prakashane. He employed Sayana as the chief of the task force. And then, in that, I don't have time to quote, he pays so much of encomium, Sayanacharya, to Vidyaranya, and says, my elder brother has got so much of confidence in me. I am a child before him, and he has only taught me everything. And I only wish I am able to discharge this responsibility to his satisfaction. Like that, he makes a commencement in his Vedartha Prakasha and starts and says, it is all the greatness of my brother. I am nothing before him. Like that, he stays. And he himself has a great personality, as we discussed yesterday. So that was the capability, that was the contribution that these brothers made to India, Indian culture, and the Sanatana Dharma. What a great people they were. And of course, like this, it was all going on. And of course, I'll just make a passing reference of one particular aspect. They called as, in the recent times, there is a lot of misinformation campaign telling that there was a Vagvada, or there was an argument between Akshobhitirtha and Vidyaranya, and Akshobhitirtha, the Madhvayati, he was able to defeat Vidyaranya in arguments. Vidyaranya could not, he became answerless and all that sort of a thing. I can assure you, gentlemen, this is not a very congenial thing in these days to spread some sort of these rumors. It is there, right? If you go to the internet also, you will find Vidyaranya, Parabhava, and so many things. Nothing of that sort happened. In fact, Professor Mr. Ganapati Ramchandra Patil, who is a great Sanskrit scholar, who resides in Dharwad, and he is the retired director of public instruction of government of Karnataka. He has written a masterly work called as Vidyaranya Vijay Vaibhava, and in that, it's about a 400-page book. He has threadbare analyzed everything, including the time frames and other things, and finally concludes that Vidyaranya was not even a yeti by the time Akshobhitirtha became Vrindavanastha. He left his mortal body. So he was not. So like that, so those controversies, let us leave it. What I'm trying to say is, because I'm speaking on Vidyaranya, I thought that this was also one of the things which has come up in the recent days, but it does not hold water. It has got a lot of, this one, see, this is really unfortunate that we fight on such trivial issues when great things are involved. So these are all, some Kavya says this, and people say that, no, it has been recorded. Like I say, history is different from Kavya. 1,000 things may be done in Kavya, whereas history is not Kavya. So historical evidences are not there. This only by way of incidental mention that I have made. Now, I think I am left with hardly 5 or 10 minutes of time, and I have I would like to just mention only a few things. Now I would like to dwell upon the great works what Acharya did in his post Grihasthashrama, that is during his pontiff, when he became pontiff. After he became Vidyaranya, the very important texts that he wrote, books that he has left to us to understand and digest are Anubhuti Prakasha. So that's Anubhuti Prakasha. It is a work by Vidyaranya Swamiji, and it deals with 12 Upanishads. The summum bosum, the sum and substance of the 12 Upanishads are all contained, are made into a abridged form, and they are all packed into a very compact book called as Anubhuti Prakasha. It's a great work where there are two parts, the Purva Bhaga and the Uttara Bhaga. The Purva Bhaga deals with Aitareya Upanishad, Taittareya Upanishad, Chandogya, Mundaka, Prashnopanishad. These are the 5 Upanishads which are dealt with in the Purva Bhaga. And in the Uttara Bhaga of the Anubhuti Prakasha, the great sage Vidyaranya deals with Kaushitiki, Maitrayani, Katha, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Kenopanishad, and Nrsimhatapanopanishad. All these 7 are dealt with in that. And it has, in about 2,275 stanzas, he summarizes the 12 great Upanishads. And there's a great work which he has made it for our convenience. And in fact, only being tempted, I'm only telling, he quotes from Maitreya Upanishad, a great Upanishad. He quotes and he explains, Uttama Tattva Chintaiva. Tattva Chinta, thinking about Tattva, thinking about the unification of the Jiva Brahma, etc. Tattva that is Uttama, that is the best thing. And Madhyamam Shastra Chintanam. If you leave it, Shastra Chintanam is more of the Karma Kanda portion, more of do's and don'ts. So that is Madhyamam Shastra Chintanam. Adhamam Mantra Chintacha. Take the this one, Mantropadesham, go on doing it for getting the daughter married, getting the good job for a son. These are all becomes Adhamam Mantra Chintacha. So just to get some benefit, you are pleasing the God is Mantra Chintanam. So that is Adhamam he calls. This is Maitreya Upanishad, not my opinions. Kindly, the participant should not mistake that I am ridiculing some practices. This is Vidyaranya, the great sage says, Vidamam Mantra Chintacha, Tirtha Bhrant Kathamadhanam, he says. Just going around the city after city, go around and say, I am doing Tirthyatra. It is totally futile. Do Tattva Chinta is a great message what he gives. Such a great magnanimous person. And then he also wrote one more book called as Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. In that Vivarana Prameya Sangraha, see, it is actually a Vivarana or an explanation given on Panchapadika. See, Panchapadika is a tika which has been written by Padmapadacharya on Shankara Bhagavad Pada's Sutra Bhashya. On Sutra Bhashya, he wrote one commentary and one Vyakhyana that's called as Panchapadika. On that Panchapadika, because the Panchapadika is such a complicated work and it is so elaborate and all that, people do not have even time to go through all that. So, what he did was, and they may also misinterpret or they may mistake some contents of the book. So, Vidyaranya Swamiji prepared what is called as on the Tika Grantha, he got a Vivarana. Vivarana is an explanation to avoid confusion. That Vivarana is called as Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. That is on Panchapadika he did. And the next most important work what he did was Jivan Mukti Viveka. This Jivan Mukti Viveka is a great work which has got some 5 chapters. And the 5 chapters are they are narrative and descriptive texts which analyzes all the Upanishadic mantras and Yoga Sutras. He combines both of them, and Vidyaranya gives us some sort of a compendium to us. And he says, our life is mainly like this because of Adi and Vyadhi. He defines Adi as the mental affliction, Vyadhi, physical affliction. Because of these afflictions only, we are attached to this world. Once you leave it, he then says, this is as a result of Prarabdha. Adi and Vyadhi is a result of Prarabdha. If you want to get rid of this, the only moksha is only after Prarabdha Kshayam. So you have to go through that and you should get rid of it. Then, in fact, this is a great work where perhaps this is a great tribute to even Bhagavad Pada's thinking, where he says, see, mukti is not something which you should realize after death. After death, what happens, nobody knows, including the person concerned. Nobody knows what happens after death. And after that, if you get Brahmananda, that, this, and all that, who knows? Who has told you? You have got it. Even the person who got it is not able to communicate. Others are definitely not able to know it. So, if at all the Brahmananda exists, it should be available when you are alive, when you are here. That is the time. Then only that Brahmananda has got some value. If you go on discussing that something I will get after my death, nobody is sure about it, then everybody will, oh, you're a great man, get it after that. I won't want to get it. So that is where the Jivan Mukta Viveka, he deals how exactly a mukti can be had during the Jivana, before death, when you are alive. That was the Avadhuta Sthiti, where the great people like, the Chandrasekhara Bharati of Sringeri, Chandrasekharendra Saraswati of Kanchi, Ramana Maharshi of Tiruvannamalai, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, all these people, they all got it. They were Jivan Muktas. They were liberated souls during their lifetime. They carried on life because the body is there. That's all. I am not the body. In fact, Tyagaraja in one of his compositions says that Tanutanugādani Yenchuvaniki Tapamuseyanela. In his Shankarabharanam Kriti, he says, when a person has realized that this body is not myself, then what tapas he has to do? That is the result of all tapas is that realization that I am not this body. So Tanutanugādu ani Yenchuvaniki Tapamuseyane. That's a great man. Tyagaraja puts entire Advaita in one simple one sentence. Tanu kadani Yenchuvaniki Tapamuseyane. So that sort of a thing, Jivan Mukta Viveka, Vidyaranya Swamiji recommends. And in fact, to be very precise, the 5 chapters he has called it as Swarupanu Prakaranam. Then he says Vasanakshe Prakaranam, 2nd chapter. 3rd chapter is Manonasha Prakaranam. 4th chapter is Swarupa Siddhi Prayojana Prakaranam. Then 5th one is Vidvat Sannyasa Prakaranam. These are the 5 stages he deals in Jivan Mukti Viveka. Then the magnum opus, the greatest thing that our great Swamiji has gifted us is Vedanta Panchadashi, a great work which all scholars of any time after Vedanta Panchadashi is coming into existence have recognized this as the greatest work and greatest tribute to Advaita. And if you have not studied Panchadashi, you cannot understand Shankara's Advaita. To that extent, this book has got the recognition. And as the name itself indicates, the Panchadashi has got 15 chapters. Some people say some earlier chapters were written by Bharati Tirtha and it was later on supplemented by the Vidyaranya. But one school of scholars, they say, because of the great respect Vidyatirtha had for Bharati Tirtha, Vidyaranya had for Bharati Tirtha, he only symbolically made him to start the book. Just like, we have the inauguration by a VIP. So later on, other things are all carried on by the other people. Like that, Vidyaranya Mahaswamiji, because of the great respect he had for his guru, Bharati Tirtha, he requested him, sir, you start this, we will continue. Like that, he made a commencement of 1 or 2 prakaranas in this, and then he continued and he completed the work. He is one school of thought, which I feel is most dependable, because it's always, everybody says it as Vidyaranya's Panchadashi. Everybody says it in tradition. But some people hold a view that it is partly by Bharati Tirtha and partly by Vidyaranya, whatever it may be. After all, Guru and Shishya, they are not strangers, they are not opponents, they were Guru and Shishya, and Bharati Tirtha had lot of affection and blessings to Vidyaranya, and Vidyaranya had lot of reverence and respect to Bharati Tirtha. So whatever it may be, as a combination also, it's a great work. In that 5, in fact, the first section is called as Viveka Panchaka. The 5 chapters on Viveka is called as Viveka Panchaka. The next 5 chapters are called as Deepa Panchaka, and the last section of 5 chapters is called as Ananda Panchaka. These are the 3 Panchakas constituting the 15 chapters of the Vedanta Panchadashi. And in fact, in Vedanta Panchadashi only, he says, just as you realize, once you realize Brahman, everything is only Brahman. So whatever you were earlier, you will not get back to that state once you realize Brahman. He gives that, and there he makes a comment, as I told you yesterday, that Blencha. Even if a Brahmana is taken by Blenchas and he is converted, once he realizes that he is not so, he is no other than, he will not become a Blencha, but he will continue to be a Brahmin. This particular thing appears in this Vedanta Panchadashi, which he implemented even for the Garvapsi or whatever I told you in yesterday's submissions to you people. So like this, it was all a great journey, which and one more very important thing, what he says there is, and there he defines tapaha as lokasangraha. I think this is the bottom line of Vidyaranya's all thought process. What is tapas? He says tapas is lokasangraha. If you are able to work selflessly for the welfare of the world, that is tapas. He gives a new definition for tapas. After all, if you really look at it, then many of them, we should say that. See, if great scientists like Newton and others have discovered some laws, and if they have made it, or if somebody like Benjamin Franklin has discovered electricity, he did not do it for himself. It is for the welfare of the entire world. It is for the achieving the good for all the people. So, if a person who, see, today, if electricity were not to be there, would he have been able to do this? Do this sort of a webinar sort of a thing? No. All the progress of the world, if it is done with that intention, that is tapas. So he says tapaha lokasangraha. I think for the entire life, he followed this dictum as tapaha lokasangraha. Lokasangraha, protect the world, work for the welfare of the world, that is tapas. And he did that tapas, and his greatness lies in that realization of that tapapala, which today all of us are able to get it. And that great person is that unparalleled Guruji and a great visionary. What he was not, as I told you, he knew music, he knew astrology, he knew astronomy, he knew dance, he knew Vedanta, he knew Vyavahara, he knew warfare, he knew welfare, everything. That's a complete personality who gave a shape to this country, to this country's thinking, to fight an external aggression in a united way, and whose administrative capabilities laid a firm foundation to survive, to see that things are put in proper place for at least 150 to 200 years of regime of the Vidyanagar. Such a great person. I think we have no words to express our gratitude to such great personality, except to say that Punascha bhuyopi namo namaste. Or, as Gaudapada tells it, namaskurmo yathabalam. As much as possible, as much as our physics permits, we will go on doing namaskar. Namaskurmo yathabalam. Till we get tired, we will do namaskaram to him. That's the only thing we can do. And with these few submissions, I conclude my submission to this August body and August listeners, thanking all the participants who have been able to provide me this support all along for so many days, for 3 days. And also my thanks to vyoma-samskrta-pathasala and the Vyoma Labs, who have been kind enough to give me this, provide this opportunity to get in touch with all of you and make you few submissions on this great personality, unparalleled personality of Vidyaranya. I conclude by telling Vidya vivekena param samsara varidhehe prapayat tenisham bhaktan tam Vidyaranyam ashraye. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Vidyaranya Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of Vyoma Linguistic Labs Foundation, I really thank you for letting us know about the great soul, Shri Vidyaranya, and the history and the culture of this land. Thank you so much. Hope we all enjoyed. We all got to know so much things, even about spiritually, so much. So thank you so much. We all look forward for many more courses and sessions like this from you through Vyoma. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Dhanyavada.
Thank you.
Thank you one and all for your consistent presence. Thank you.
Namaskurmo yathabalam.